that we just did previously. Now, another thing I wanted to mention here is, say on the Volvo, those are known for sunroof drain issues and they can have really bad problems electronically. I pulled the fender liner on this side to check some stuff and take some measurements for stuff I want to do on this car. And I saw all these leaves piled up here when I took the fender liner to the car wash to wash it. These cars definitely have sunroof drains. I'm not familiar with their location, but the point here being that you want to definitely pull your fender liners at this age and make sure that those corners, see here's the fender liners, both of them, I washed them nice and clean, ready to go back on, because if we have to do some suspension stuff, I don't want all that dust and oil from 15 years on my head. So the point here was that, yeah, I don't know, that probably would not affect anything. I hope Audi has a good design on their sunroof drains, but clear that stuff, okay, so that things don't build up. Just okay, so I'm gonna add a bit of coolant. Maybe we'll get that sound. I'm gonna put all this stuff back together, okay. I'm very detailed in the removal videos, okay, but I need to get this car rolling and moving, okay. So I'm not gonna go step by step, by shot, okay. So look forward to some driving in the next video. But yeah, I really hope I pinpoint that sound, but so far it doesn't seem to be anything major. So hopefully, fingers crossed, car is roadworthy. That's either a giant leaf full of leaves or a piece of cardboard paper from a parts box. That's what I just pulled out of the fender liner there. Getting the headlights back in. So this one on this side, before it was held in by 1 bolt. Fortunately, this time I was able to get it held in by 2 bolts, that more difficult one way down deep. So what it took was an extension, a 1/4 inch bit, and I could have put my short T30 in there, but when you're working, this happens. That's a drill bit end and a T25, because before I was trying with this thing to just get it in there and it wasn't enough clearance, it was touching the fender. And my T30 was too short, and the T25. So once I found a 1/4 inch bit, that was a lot easier to just put that piece on the left inside the drill and easily zip that in. So fortunately now this passenger side headlight has 2 points of contact. We'll have to JB weld that top mount piece. We've talked about that a million times to death. And this one will go in just fine, and we'll keep her going. So a helpful trick for the T30s that are way down there, for me it's here. If you're not in service position, it'll be through here. Inserting it, you should thread it in before you put the headlight in, and then adjust it properly, push the headlight in, and then just feed whatever your bit is in there. That will make it easier to just tighten it down. You won't have to carry it in, if that helps you. It's not going to make removal any easier. Well, there's a lesson on winter no evaporation for the noobs. See that water there? I just pulled out the crash bar thing there, and it was full of water because of the car wash that I told you guys I did in the garage. And water stands still in a garage. It does not go anywhere. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, sure. Before the stage of putting the crash bars in, you can see here that I have taken the car out of its service position mode. In my case, okay, I took the 2 T30s out where I had the carrier forward. I pushed the bricks and the hitch over. And what you have to do is you have to be strong enough to hold it from the inside of that main carrier piece. From the inside, I've probably gone over this way more in the removal video, but somewhere along the front here on a sturdy portion, because that's plastic and metal combined all over the place. You got to find the right spots. You got to be real. It's going to be tempting for you to use your knee to support it on the AC condenser there. Absolutely do not do that. You got to have a lot of shoulder and back forearm strength to do this alone, because then you have to hold the whole thing kind of on one side and grab your T30s and put 2 of them in at least so it doesn't slide forward. This is seriously a stage where I'd say for 90% of people, 70% of people, get a helper to help you do this, because you can mess a lot of stuff up. There's a bunch of vacuum lines and electrical inside in front of the engine cover there that you don't want to get pinched. So I managed to do it carefully, one-handed on both sides, and got the screws in without damaging it. Just pay attention if you're doing it alone. It shouldn't make a difference, but the two T30s and then the three 13mm bolts on each side that hold the crash shock in, you got to put all those in a sequence somehow and make sure everything aligns nicely, okay? The headlights, I had to flap in some flaps there, but they'll finally be up once all these bolts are in. So the bolts are, everything is unitary on this cars, okay? A lot of stuff helps hold the structure of the rest of the stuff in. Okay, yeah, I'll keep working. So I decided to do my final alignment of the 4 screws on top first. Just be careful when you reach inside here, you have your hood cable latch. That can make you slip and drop this if you don't take the screw out fully. Just take it out a little bit, align your holes, zip them in. You can do it one side at a time. Same thing over here. You guys know this headlight has a serious history going on, but doesn't really affect it. My headlight stayed, but the carrier, same concept, okay? In order to align the holes, I got the second bolt in now. And inside here, you don't have nothing too bad, but if you're klutzy, this is not good, okay? There's a million things inside here that can go bad. Okay, just to help you guys not waste time on one of the steps, that 10mm bolt that holds in the bracket underneath, okay, I put it in incorrectly before. That actually also sandwiches on this side. So there's 2 plastic dowels, and then there's that screw piece that comes in there, and then you put the little 10mm nut on there, then you put your 3/13s. So for these 6 bolts, after you've put the crash struts in, a real human helper is the main thing to lift the whole carrier in a line. There are those 2 on my car rusted spots where we had the bricks for about a year with the ATV hitch. That is the point that they would lift by their hands while you put the 3 screws in, gently by hand, all 3 on each side. The alternative, which you have to be very careful not to damage anything, is on those same spots. You use 2 floor jacks, pumping one at a time to evenly lift it up just a hair, because it's only about a centimeter, half a centimeter. Lift it up, put your 3 screws in, and then the rest is history, okay? But just, if you do it like this and you jack it on the wrong spot, on the oil cooler or something, you're going to start costing yourself thousands and thousands again. So an incompetent helper is just as bad as a bad floor jack on your own. So take what you will from this, but this is how I figured I'm going to have the safest way of putting this back together without stupidly doing one side and then jumping around on all sides. Absolutely scrap the floor jack idea. This only lifts them up to the points where you can push them in. There's still too much of a gap like this with where the screws need to go in. So I'm going to remove the floor jacks and just use my hands, because it still needs to, there's about an inch and a half to 2 inches of gap that it needs to move closer towards the car. And if you try to roll those floor jacks, they will fall onto a sensitive component and you are effed again. So do not do this whatsoever. This is one of those examples of what not to do. Okay, this is a play-by-play. So with these screws being in, obviously, you would think that those would be in the right spot, and they are. Right now, it's hanging down like this and on the correct spot now that the floor jacks are out. The reason the floor jacks don't work is because they start to try to lift the carrier like this again, and that moves them further away. That was that 1 to 2 inches I was talking about. So you kind of just want to leave it here with the 4 bolts on top, and then just shimmy it up one side at a time. Actually, you know what? I'm probably going to use the bricks and the hitch if I can't just do it by hand. And then just one side at a time, put my bolts in, and we'll be on with it. Alteration number 3600 on this technique. On those same brick and ATV hitch spots, this time I used 1 floor jack. Again, very carefully. Lifted it up just a hair. My screws can bite with 1 floor jack. With the 2, I think it was pulling both of them out too much. So with the 1, it's just enough for 2 or 3 threads to catch on my 3 bolts. And once I zip them in, it's going to be just fine. But the hitch, sorry, the The floor jack definitely helped me on those two rusty plates on the bottom, but if you F around with the floor jack and you're not careful, you can cause a lot more damage than help. So just be careful, very careful, and check everything regardless of what I'm saying here in your case. So just like every other bolt in this car, it is still a pinch your fingers and scratch the back of your hands affair to get those 3 bolts in, even the few threads. Now the most important thing, because this is a traditional floor jack so it doesn't throw some of you off, is the cup thing. I just picked it up and took it off, so I'm not going to take that out because I'm working right now with it, but this right here, okay, on my low profile floor jack, when you take that cup off, it looks like that underneath. You definitely want a flat rectangular surface to lift there. You do not want that stupid cup thing that will cause damage on an Audi. So before I move on, that's what this looks like. So now I'm going to take this over to the other side and do the same thing. See, the crash bar is in. Ideally, you should do this loosely and then go back and do the other side loosely. The best way to do this would be with 3 people. To have 1 person controlling the jack and 2 people simultaneously coordinating, tightening the 3 bolts on each side. But if you're alone, you'll get away with it just like this. But the floor jack isn't helping much on the other side because there's no help really needed. It only needed to lift it about 2 millimeters for it to be perfectly centered for the 3 bolts. So I'm just going to zip those 3 in and we're good. It shouldn't be such a big deal, but I was so excited when I found the 2 bolts for this snorkel because I couldn't find them for a long time. So it's a triumphant moment. But this is starting to look like a stock engine bay again, almost. Really need a new reservoir though. I really should not have skimped out on that this time around, as it does have the cracks and everything you guys have seen. I've talked before. I will change that very soon. Okay, coolant level sensor works. Pretty sure when I edited that clip before, the fluid was just low enough that it didn't trigger the sensor. But I mean, I'll keep an eye on it because I'm not sure when I start driving it. So time to put the crash bar and that module on and keep going. So when you put the bolts in, they go in from the bottom for the crash bar and that module mount thing and the horn mount thing, this whole thing. Do the one on this side first because it's a small cylinder and the other one has a bit of room for adjustment. So you'd be better off doing this side first. Once you have it there, you'll see it. I forgot to videotape it before I started. But the other thing is, your bolt might not align. The thing is, when it sits there, it leans, let's say I'm turning the camera, it leans a bit like this. You're gonna have to hold it up and back while you thread up the bolt from the bottom. That's gonna work. I should have done this while in service position, but I just put it in the start position, the key, to check the headlights, and both of them are thankfully working. So that was a... But see, the reason I say check them in service position first is because if there's something wrong with the plug or you have to do other stuff, you can figure it out there. So I'm going to turn those off. I tightened those 2 bolts. I'm going to put the module on and we'll keep going. So in terms of the module, I've just hand tightened the 2 10mm bolts. But before you tighten the 2 10mm bolts, there's a plastic bracket inside of the crash bar there. You want to gently move the wires back and forth. Make sure not to chafe the wire casing on the plastic or anything else, but move them a little bit further out so that they're not all jumbled up here against the module, okay? So it's a smooth flow of wires the same way it was before when you started taking the car apart. So yeah, just be careful throughout that step and make sure your wires are all healthy and safe. So right now, you see I put those 2 things in, the air scoops on both sides. Hopefully this one fits decently once I'm done, because you guys know that I did some body repair on that. Now the horn, you see it hanging there, don't worry, it's only for these 2 seconds. But I had fed it over the coolant pipe there to put less stress on the wires during this entire year of process, so I took it back out. And remember, the horns are mounted inside of the crash bar, okay? It's going to be confusing, you're just going to put them on all ways and you're going to be like, huh? They all work, but put them inside the crash bar. In any case, it's a German way to put things inside. It's really nice. They even put lines for where the clip goes for that coolant hose. So, I mean, you guys remember, okay, here's the beauty of all these issues I've been having with these headlights and brackets and stuff that I've Remember way back there was a zip tie here? Look at how misaligned. Look, you can see their drilled zip tie holes that I showed you guys last time maybe. So the piece of weather stripping is in. Now this decorative cover, I did just clean it up. I don't know why I didn't film it. But on the inside here, okay, in this portion, there was a thick layer of grime, like oil dirt grime that you see on the end of bottom of an oil pan or something that's been on the road. Whatever, just grime, okay? Oily grime. And that bit of smoke we were getting earlier today, again, I think it was just the coolant that was inside the fins of the Oxrad. And the Oxrad only had coolant in the fins because it leaked on itself during this process of the way it was sitting, because it tilts backwards and the hoses were off and whatnot. Over time, the coolant just came out. Whoa, just crazy stuff over the year. But not because the Oxrad itself had an issue. But it might be that it's oil vapor from somewhere. I don't know, cam girdle gasket, exhaust manifold gasket. Well, not exhaust manifold gasket, it wouldn't really be oil. Valve cover gasket, valve cover gasket could be leaking and the steam somehow comes out from that area. I don't know. Okay, we'll have to look into that more, but again, just for the record, in case something happens, I want it to be documented that there was a lot of grime in this corner of the cover, but that could have been there since the day the car could have been there forever. All right, so we'll pop that on. So there is just the one T30 bolt right there. I think it's a T25 or T30 that you need to tighten a little bit, but it sits into a plastic groove. Gotta check with a dealer to see if I can get the hood strut, but it's kind of like common knowledge that we can't get these anymore for the aluminum hoods, so yeah, we'll just keep doing the stupid stick thing. I'm gonna carry that stick around with me now because I gotta check this car all the time. I'm not a fan of the vice grip techniques or other stuff, so hopefully I don't damage that piece of weather stripping before any of this happens. But so far, all this stuff is held up like crazy good with that method that I've been using. So keep her going here. My mistake. You do not need to tighten that at all. That is already tight. That piece of plastic, literally that bolt there holds in a bracket that a U piece, upside down U, just sits on top of it. Okay, you don't need to tighten that. That bolt was completely tight. Just pop this piece in and out as much as you wish. Just to keep the German theme going, some of you might find it interesting that I ended up using T20 screws from Miele German vacuum cleaners for those two air scoops at the bottom to add screws, and they fit perfectly. So in the previous clips, that module might have looked a bit bent back. I just pulled it's really soft metal. I just straightened it out. I had never unbolted that from the crash bar, so I don't know why it sits a bit sideways. So just do that if that happens to yours. Talking about the bracket part, okay, the black part, do not grab onto the module and use that to straighten that. Put two of your fingers right there behind there and pull this forward. If you're in a similar position where you have both fender liners off for some reason like this, before installing the bumper, there, I'll go to the other side, install the back half of the fender liner and leave the whole front half just hanging, because that'll make your sight lines for your bumper install way easier for those too difficult to reach bolts on both sides. You can do it with just flapping the fender liner back a bit, but this just makes it a bit easier. This garage had almost become ornamental with the parts of this car. Look at that, the hood closed for the first time in a year. Bumper's here, almost there. Bumper on, hood closed for the first time in a year. Nice. Okay, so it's time to get the car out for a drive to see if the rustic edition brakes still clear up. Finally, after a year, this car is on its own wheels. I will give you guys a note of caution, which is I was tired, 4 a.m. in the morning working on this. I had the handbrake down and the gear shift lever in neutral, as I have this whole time while it was on blocks. I was lucky that my garage is flat and this car's heavy that it didn't roll away, and I caught it in time. So make sure to check that if you're on all fours before you put it down, okay? Because you can get mixed up with thinking of other things during your job. So this car is almost empty, but underneath it, behind it, everything, I'm just trying to give you guys an idea of the dangers of letting a car sit for so long. Before you realize it, you've got a garage's worth of stuff inside, behind, and around the car. I can't tell you how much stuff there is all over the place that came out of this particular car. And just on a final note, fog lights are working with the headlights now that the bumper is in, so we are good to go. Nice yellow and xenon. Okay, here we are the next day. This is the car's first time moving out of the garage in a year under its own power. Let's see if the brakes and the clutch and everything are good. So I'm just doing this so you can see if there's any odd sounds on the initial movement out of the garage. In typical German vehicle fashion, now the car has a no start, so the car still hasn't moved out of the garage ever since the repairs. Could be a sticky starter solenoid, I don't know what, maybe the battery drained overnight, but the battery should be fine. I'll just leave this running here and I'll keep trying a few more times. So fuel pump, lights, everything's working. I think the battery's just too weak for the starter. I'm gonna put some charger on it and we'll see what happens. I don't know, man. Yeah, I'll just charge the battery a bit more and we'll try again later. Oh, what I meant to say was the battery light was also on. Like the seatbelt light would go away on illumination, but the battery light was staying on, so maybe it's saying it doesn't have enough battery for everything. Well, I missed the start because I tried one more time off camera and it was the sticky starter solenoid. It did not need any battery. So this is the first time the car moving out of the garage on its own after a year. So just to be clear, it was just a sticky starter solenoid. Took about 7 or 8 tries, okay, to get it to start. So yeah, that problem definitely is still here and the stupid camera won't focus. And yeah, it's not heat related, okay? It can happen in winter, it can happen. See, it didn't, after a year, it started up the first time I turned the key. So it's very intermittent, not temperature related. Those sticky starter solenoids can always be acting up on these things randomly. And as I said, sometimes in the summer it's taking up to 45 seconds for it to go away and work. The starter, like holding the crank for 45 seconds until it finally clicks and the car, then finally it goes. So let's go see what's going on with this car now on the road. Okay, so while we wait for things to build up some temperature here, yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna say. Yeah, so still got a million warning lights here. We'll have to do a hard reset and clear them and see what's really going on with this car. But she's running pretty smooth, I gotta say. Okay. Yeah, I'll just let it warm up. We'll go for a spin, see how the clutch is grabbing. Not gonna do anything crazy because of the sometimes sticky clutch pedal on this. And hopefully the brakes clear up. Yeah, and in terms of fuel, that is that same tank we put in a year ago. I think it was Canadian Tire Premium 91 with that Lucas ethanol fuel stabilizer, and the fueling system on this fortunately has done okay with it. Hasn't complained or hiccuped even once. There was one weird, I think, high pressure fuel pump or some kind of fuel pump sound when I opened the door once off camera after the first start videos. But that, whatever it was, it went away. It was like probably something that was just sitting, some kind of seals or motor that hadn't worked in a while, electric motor that hadn't worked in a while, and that has cleared itself up. But this sticky starters situation, I never liked it, but I've been living with it for, I don't know what, 2 years, going on 3 years having this car, and it's been fine. But we'll have to do a starter at some point because I do not think it's the relays on my car. So Christmas light dash is a way of being for vehicle people. You guys know this. And yeah, as long as my headlights and fog lights work, yeah, we're good. And yeah, those brake pads, the sensors were taken out by somebody. The sensors are still there with the wires tucked behind the well liner. But yeah, I'm not gonna go into too much. Let's test this car out first. So once I warm it up, we'll have some more clips. So coolant level has stabilized and is not dropping, so pressure in the system is good and there's no leaks. Okay, so the brakes in the back are dragging, not dragging a bit, but there's some rust on them, right? So we're gonna be okay, I think, even with the brakes. But clutch is working good and we're under our own power. Let it warm up a bit more once I get down the street and then we'll keep going. Okay, so I don't know if the computer's rebraining itself, but the traction control light went off by itself. All right, that again had weird limitations on the car. Oh shit, oh shit, should I go back? Oh no, I don't want to get towed 5 meters back to my house. Okay, I'm gonna go back in the driveway until this engine stabilizes, because that was a weird RPM drop. Okay, I gotta talk quickly here. What was I gonna say? Yeah, the brakes need a lot of work to maybe clear up the bit of rust that they have on them. They're sounding really bad. My pads are also probably trashed. I just want them to be functional for now. So I'm gonna go back to the driveway, let it warm up a bit more, and see if this weird idle drop thing that just happened there for a second happens again. If it doesn't, we'll go back for a spin. Okay, so made it, I don't know, 500 meters back to the driveway, just so we can see if the idle stabilizes and doesn't drop oddly like that. That was me. But yeah, I put it in reverse once, braked a bit more. Everything is still butter smooth on this car after a year of not being working. The brakes, obviously, it's brakes, you know, it's a wear item. Okay, I don't need to explain BS like this. Okay, so if that idle drop doesn't happen to me again, I will drive out again. But geez, I'm not trying to get a tow back to the house. We'll be okay. All right. Yeah, we'll be fine. So let's see you guys in a few minutes. And for any of you wondering what that weird sound is, that's still just those vent flaps way back there. Okay, that just vibrate because of the catless exhaust. If you have the back seats in with the catless, you will not hear that at all. Okay, but that's because of this seatless setup that I have here. And in terms of any smoke that was coming from the hood, there is nothing now. Okay, it was just residual from inside of the aux rad, okay, that had leaked onto it during the time when, I don't know, coolant leaked into it somehow from one of the top ports or something. Okay, so no smoke and we're good. Like no coolant smoke. See, the brakes sound pretty nasty if you guys heard it on camera there. Yeah, man, this thing's still healthy and nice. Quality car. Expensive parts, difficult labor, but it's worth it in the end. So there you have it, guys. You can see there's no smoke at all rising. That was just the residual inside of that aux rad from just some odd style leaking from the top ports of the aux rad itself. Now I remembered correctly. Okay, so no oil leak, no coolant leak, everything is good. Belt tensioner, everything is running nice. Car's in good shape. She's back. Everything is running nicely. Okay, now this one isn't something I'm very proud of, but I'm going to show you guys anyways. So I washed this in the garage about 2 months ago, and I got all the flash rust on the rotors, and it has cleared up to pre-levels. By pre-levels, I mean my rotors were always bad, but it has cleared up that flash rust after a month or two. So the whole flash rust thing, it's not that big of a deal, but don't listen to what I'm saying. I'm just showing you guys what happened on this car, okay? The back ones were a lot better condition, and they have cleared up again to pre-storage, pre-work levels on both sides. Let's go look at the other side. The grill and everything's looking pretty good. I mean, I do like the more subtle look with the Avis silver surround for the grill, but that is also a preference thing, okay? I might revert it back, but I think with the silver mirror caps, I like the subtle look. It's working for me. The Avis silver color match, body color match grill surround there. So you can see here, that is also pre-storage levels. That bumper ain't looking so aligned there, but whatever. I think it was always like that. And there's the other rear rotor. And inside the car is obviously good. So the car still does it won't completely disengage traction control. So what you saw there was a traction launch, okay? Pretty weak launch because I'm taking it more easy on the car, but yeah, I turned the traction control off, but it only goes in the flashing mode. You can't do the one where you hold it and it goes off. There's something I gotta sort out EPC wise, probably with the flaps, before we can get that to work. So, and half traction control off one more time. Okay, so the car did a bit better there. So after those few rounds of hard braking, the brakes have completely cleared up. Nothing is scraping. Okay, that was just a bit of rust. The brakes are completely good. Like as it rolls and as it stops. Here, we'll do a stop. No, there's a car behind me. Yeah, there's a car behind. Okay, the car stops good. All right, it doesn't scrape anymore. Okay, here, coming up to the stop sign. Have a listen. Actually, yeah, there's still a bit of scraping because of the rust, but yo, it's all good, man. For what it is and what the car still needs to be done, we have made very good progress to this point. All right, guys, until the next part of the RS4 series, checking out. Happy holidays.